You know the stories. Every Malaysian grows up with them. Tales whispered through dark shop houses and passed between kids at school. The Pontiac, the woman who died at childbirth, whose rage is so perfect, so precise, that it becomes something almost beautiful. Almost. What follows are five accounts, five ordinary people from ordinary towns. They're not ghost hunters or paranormal investigators. They're people like you. They each have jobs, families, and routines, and they each have a moment they can't quite explain. And this is what they said. I've been driving a taxi in Ipoh for 17 years. Every night shift feels like it's the same, which is fine by me. The routine is safety. You know the roads. You know which customers tip and which ones disappear without paying. You know where each pothole is. Except there's this one stretch, the old Batu Gaja Road, heading north towards the mines. Nothing there except for the old colonial structures. All that Victorian whitewash peeling like sunburned skin. Around 2 a.m, I picked up a call. A woman's voice on the phone. Our dispatcher. Aziz, one pickup at the Garden Hotel. I remember there that night. It was hot, but more of a wet hot, like the sky was holding its breath. The kind of humidity that gets in your lungs and stays there. The passenger was waiting at the curb, long dark hair, in traditional dress. I remember thinking it was odd, because it was almost 3 at this point, and nobody dresses like that anymore. But I didn't ask any questions. She got in the back seat and gave me an address. Kampong Tejung, about 40 minutes away. She said it quietly. I'd driven that road maybe 1,000 times. You pass the old mining sites, all those abandoned pools of black water catching moonlight. You pass the banana groves. They own the night there, those trees. They own it completely. The smell is sweet and rotten at the same time. Frangipani too, if there are any left around the villages. That smell, you know it right, like something beautiful dying. I didn't really talk that much, and she didn't either. The radio was just playing low in the background, and occasionally I watched her in the mirror. She was looking out the window the whole time. Her reflection was strange in the glass, kind of like it was catching the light wrong. About 20 minutes in, we passed the Kinsau checkpoint. The security guard there, I know him, always waves. He looked at my car as we passed, and I saw his face change. Just for a moment, but I saw it. That look you get when something's wrong, but you just can't place it. The thing is, I didn't feel threatened. Not exactly. It's more that the car started feeling small. Like the back seat was expanding, or she was, or the air between us was turning into something solid. The smell changed too. Not frangipani anymore, something else. Metallic, copper, with something sweeter underneath. Like fruit that started to rot inside, while the skin's still perfect. I asked her if she was okay. I don't know why, but it just came out. She turned to look at me directly, and I saw her eyes were wrong. Not blank, not angry, just wrong. Like looking at something that was remembering how to be human, that hadn't quite gotten it right. She smiled and said, I'm very okay, but my baby is coming home. I said, the address you gave me, Tanjung, there's nothing there now. That kampong was abandoned in 1998. She kept smiling. Yes, I know. And then she said something in a language I almost recognised. Javanese, maybe, or something older than that. The words felt like they were entering the car from the outside, like she wasn't necessarily saying them at all. I pulled over. I just pulled the car onto the hard shoulder, told her to get out, told her I wouldn't take the fare any longer. She looked at me, still had that smile, and opened the door. I watched her walk into the banana groves beside the road, and the trees swallowed her almost immediately. I sat there for maybe 3 minutes, then turned around and drove back to Ipoh. When I got back to the hotel, Wadi called me and said the passenger never requested a ride. No booking under any name, no phone call at all. I've tried to file a report of whatever was in my car that night, but nobody believes me, and I haven't driven that road since. Last week, I heard they found an old police report from 1967. A woman died in childbirth at the government clinic near Chinjung. Her name, I can't quite remember, but they said she was expecting a baby. Due date was late October, so I don't drive north anymore. I take the long way. It's an extra 20 minutes, but it's fine. My name is Hamid. I work security at a banana plantation about 10 kilometres outside of Lorsa Tower. The work is simple. Walk the perimeter every few hours, check on the fence, and make sure nobody's stealing the harvest. I've been doing this for 8 years. The pay isn't much, but the air is clean out there. No city noise, only the plantation in the sky. There are 3 of us on the night shift, me, Rahim and Sudin. We rotate the rounds, 4 hours on, 4 hours rest. The routine is always the same. Perimeter check, then you sit in the guardhouse with the fluorescent lights that never stop buzzing. The lights keep buzzing like it's alive, like it's thinking. After a while at night, you hear it differently. 3 weeks ago, I was on the midnight round. Clear night, stars so bright they were almost cruel. The bananas were tall that time, maybe 2 weeks from harvest. When the bananas are like that, the plantation feels different. The rows become narrower, they're like corridors. The leaves are thick enough that the starlight doesn't quite reach the ground. I was walking along the eastern fence line, the part that borders the old cemetery, the one from the colonial time, before they moved most of the graves. There's maybe 100 markers left there, half buried in red earth, most of them now unreadable. The smell hit me first. Frangipani flowers. There's an old tree at the cemetery boundary. It's mostly dead now, but it flowers in November. It's both beautiful and terrible at the same time. That smell can make you think strange thoughts, if you let it. I heard something in the banana rows. A sound like a cloth moving, like someone dragging something through the leaves. I called out, "Who's there?" because that's the protocol. But nobody answered me, and the sound stopped. I kept walking, and then I heard it again, closer this time, a rustling, but it felt deliberate, like someone was moving with me, only deeper in the rows, matching exactly to my pace. I turned my flashlight. The beam caught the leaves and just disappeared. That's when I realized the leaves were wet and soaked, like it had rained hard. But it hadn't today. The ground was dry. Only the leaves were wet. And the smell was stronger now. Frangipani and something else. Blood, perhaps. Or at least the memory of it. And that's when I saw her, standing about 15 metres in, between the 2 rows. She was wearing a traditional dress, kabaya, the old style. Her hair was long and wet. It was dripping, actually dripping water onto the mud, and her face was very pale. Pale in a way that was unnatural, like someone who hasn't seen sunlight in months, or even years. She was just standing there, looking at me. I said, "This is private property. You have to leave." She tilted her head, the way a bird does when it hears a sound that's interesting. When she smiled, I saw that her teeth were too white and to uniform. I've come to collect, she said. The baby was born here, in 1941, in the maternity house that used to be here before it burned. I, of course, didn't know that. I didn't know of this place, much less the history of it. She took a step toward me, and when she did, the banana leaves around her bent inward, like she was pulling the air itself towards her. The smell became overwhelming. Frangipani and copper, and something organic and wrong. The smell of a body in the wrong season. Do you know what it's like? She said. To die before you're ready. To die incomplete. To have something inside you, something you made, something that was going to be alive. And then she made a sound. Not words. Like a wind that cracked through a wall. I backed up. I didn't mean to. I just did. My feet moved without asking my brain. She moved forward at the same speed. I come back every year. The same season. The same month. But he doesn't come. My baby doesn't come. He's somewhere else. Somewhere I can't reach him. So I look for him. In the roads. In the houses. In the faces of the people passing by. I can't help you, I said. No. She agreed. But you can leave. Everyone can leave. Except me. I ran. Honestly, I don't care if it sounds cowardly. I ran straight back to the guardhouse. Raheem was asleep in the chair, head back and snoring. I grabbed his shoulder and he jolted awake, like I electrocuted him. I told him someone was in the plantation, an intruder. We should check it out and call the police. We went back out with flashlights. The entire eastern fence was empty, no footprints. The banana rows looked undisturbed and the fence intact, but the leaves were still wet, only in the eastern section. The rest of the plantation dry. Raheem asked me what I saw. I just told him I didn't see anything clearly. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I made a mistake. But he knew I was lying. He's known me too long. The next day I did some research. The land where the plantation sits now, it used to be different things. A housing settlement, then a rubber mill, then estates, and yes, apparently in the 1940s, there was a maternity clinic here for the plantation workers' wives. It burnt down in 1941. Fire started in the night. 11 women died, 4 of which were pregnant. The records are vague, but one woman, the name is faded in archived documents. She was expected to deliver that month. I still work there. I'm not going to quit. That's cowardice of a different kind, but I don't do the eastern fence line anymore. I swap with Raheem. He does that section, and I go north and west. Raheem hasn't mentioned it again, but sometimes I see him look back at the cemetery, at that dead frangipani tree, and he looks tired in a way that sleep won't fix. I told my wife what happened. She said I should quit, find different work. But I have 2 kids that go to school. You just don't quit because something's in there. You work around it. That's what we do. We work around the impossible and pretend the horizon is straight. I've been a nurse at the Malaysian hospital for 12 years, doing night shift usually, 12 hours, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. The work is hard and the pay is worse, but there's something about taking care of people in their worst moments that makes it feel necessary. Like you're holding a piece of someone's life together when it's trying to fall apart. December was always busy. It always is. The holidays bring accidents. People trying to do repairs in their houses and cutting themselves. Kids breaking bones and all sorts. By the second week, I was tired. The kind of tired where you forget what sunlight feels like. I was assigned to the maternity ward that week, which should have been good. Less drama, and mostly routine. Women in labour, babies being born. A good kind of emergency. But December is also when complications can happen. The heat, the stress of the holidays, and the additional strain on the body. There was this one patient. I remember her because she was so quiet. Most labouring mothers, they make noise, groans, shouts, and curses. It's all natural. But this woman, she barely made a sound. She would breathe very carefully, and her face would get tense, but no sound would come out. Her eyes were open the whole time, looking at the ceiling, not in a daze, very aware and extremely focused. The thing was, no one had brought her in. She was already there when my shift started. The admin papers were incomplete. No name, no family contact, and no insurance. Just a note that said, admitted 14th of December, late evening, condition stable. Dr. Rajesh asked about it, and the day nurse just shrugged. She came in her own, with no distress. She said she was ready to deliver. Didn't have much of an accent, but she didn't really talk that much, so I just ran the usual test. She's healthy, placenta's good, and the baby looks good. So we continued to monitor. Her vitals were perfect. Too perfect almost. Blood pressure was exactly where it should be. Heart rate was steady. The fetal monitor showed a normal heartbeat, normal rhythm. Everything was textbook. She was dilating slowly. Unusual, sure, but not impossible. People progressed at different rates. At around 3 in the morning, I was there checking up on her. The ward was quiet. Just her, me, and the beeping monitors, and the fluorescent light that never quite stopped humming. She turned her head to look at me directly. That's when I realised I'd never heard her speak. Not once. She'd never asked for water, or pain medication, or anything really. What's your name? I asked. I was just trying to be normal, like I am with all the other patients. She said very clearly, my name is not important. The baby's name is important. His name was supposed to be Irfan. He was going to be born in 1969 in a small house near the river. My mother was going to be there. My sister was going to be there, but instead... But she just stopped, like she'd reached the end of her sentence, but she didn't quite finish. Instead what? I asked. She smiled, like it was wrong, like her face was learning how to do it, based on a memory than a feeling. The baby died before he was born. During the delivery, the doctor tried, but it was too late. He came out quiet, already gone. And I died too. The bleeding wouldn't stop. I died on the floor with my baby in my arms. I went quiet. Patients sometimes talk about trauma during their labour. It's not uncommon. The mind goes to strange places. That was a long time ago. But I come back every year, and I try again. I come back to deliver him, to feel him be born, to hear him cry, but it's never real. It's never complete. The baby won't come, he won't. With that, the monitor alarm went off. The fetal heartbeat had stopped. I hit the call button immediately. Dr. Rajesh came running, and when we got her into the delivery room, the labour had suddenly accelerated. But there was something wrong. The internal examination showed, well, I don't really know how to describe it. It was like the baby was there and not there. The ultrasound was giving impossible readings. The monitor would go silent for 30 seconds, then suddenly jump to 160 beats per minute, then almost do nothing. The baby's position kept changing. We'd see head down, then breech, then sideways. It wasn't possible. She pushed once, very hard, and there was this sound, not a scream, not a cry, not anything I'd ever heard. It was like the sound of water draining, but also like fabric tearing, but like something had been compressed and suddenly expanding. The nurse beside me flinched. The baby came, but the baby wasn't formed right. I've never seen anything like it. The doctor, he went very still. He told everyone to leave, except for him and me. He looked at the baby and then at the mother. And I've never seen someone's face become so certain of something terrible so quickly. He told me to document there was a stillbirth. Fetal malformation, incompatible with life. Write it down exactly like that. I asked him what I was actually seeing. He said, "You're not actually seeing anything. Just write it down and go home." The mother, she was lying on the bed and she was smiling. Smiling so wide, so relieved. She looked at the baby and touched his face. And she said something in a language I didn't recognize. Perhaps Javanese. Then she looked at me and said, "Thank you." Her eyes started to close and the monitor started to slow. Dr. Rajesh said, "She's hemorrhaging, get the blood now." But it was too late. It was like the hemorrhage had already happened somewhere else, in another time, and we were just watching the echo of it. She died at 3:50 a.m. on December 14th. The paperwork said it was placenta abruption, septic shock, and organ failure. All the clinical language that means something went terribly wrong. The baby disappeared from the hospital. Dr. Aziz said the paperwork, they said being cremated per protocol, but I never saw it happen, and I don't think it happened. I don't go near the maternity ward anymore. I transferred to emergency. I can't be in a place where new things are supposed to begin. Every December 14th, I call in sick. I don't work that day. My therapist says I should talk about it, that I've experienced trauma and I need to process it. But she wasn't there. She didn't see what I saw. You can't process something that doesn't fit into the structure of what's real. I think about that woman sometimes. I think about the fact that every year she comes back, trying to deliver a baby that will never be born, trying to finish something that death has made impossible. I wonder if she's still looking, if some other hospital or some other nurse will see what I saw. And I wonder what happens to something that's caught between being born and staying dead. I drive motorbike for delivery and work on coaching food, packages, and medical supplies. Whatever people need. The city's sprawling. You get to know every street and every shortcut. Every road has its own personality, if you pay attention. I was making one final delivery at around 11 p.m. The monsoon was coming. You could just feel it in the air. The pressure that makes the sky feel lower than it should be. The delivery was to an office building, and I was heading back towards the depot on my bike when I decided to take the route through the smaller roads. It's normally faster when there's no traffic. I went through Kampong Buyang, the village area, and that's when I saw her. She was standing in the middle of the road, just standing there. No one really stands in the middle of the road at 11 p.m. unless something is very wrong. As I slowed down and got closer, I could see that she was wearing a traditional dress. Very traditional, a kind you see in old photographs. Her hair long and wet, which was strange because it hadn't rained that day. I stopped the bike about 3 meters from her and asked if she needed help, but she didn't answer. She just smiled. "I'm looking for someone." "A man. He walked this road once, a long time ago." "I can call someone for you," I said. "The police or..." "No. I can't involve authorities. Authorities make things too solid. They make it all real in a way that would be complicated." I must admit, I didn't understand what she meant. "There's a river nearby," she said, "isn't there? The Sarawak River." "Yeah," I said, "a few K that way." She looked in the direction I pointed. "He walked into that river that night, after everything, after I died. He walked to the river and he stood there for a long time. And then he walked back home. He lived for 30 more years and had other children and grandchildren. He had a life. He was allowed a life." I don't know what you're talking about," I said. "No, but you're driving this road. This is the road he would have walked. That means something, doesn't it? That his path is still here. That people still use it." She stepped towards the bike, and as she did, I saw something that made my skin understand fear before my brain did. Her shadow wasn't quite right. It was slightly delayed, like it was following her, but lagging, like it hadn't quite caught up to where she was. I started the bike. I didn't think about it. I just turned the key and revved the engine. Wait, will you take me to the river? Just once. I want to see it from a different time. I want to see what he saw. I'm sorry, I replied, and I meant it. But there was something in her voice that was genuinely sad. Not threatening, just very sad. Yes, she said. Everyone is sorry. That's the only constant. Apologies from people who are still alive. As if that sorrow changes anything. I drove away. But in the mirror, she was still standing there, watching me go. But here's the thing that I still can't explain. That road is about 5 kilometres road. A straight stretch for Kampong Bayun. Then it opens up a bit towards the edge of the city. I know that road intimately. I must drive it 3 or 4 times a week. That night, when I looked back in my mirror, she wasn't just standing there. She was standing on the road behind me. And the road was stretching, or the distance was increasing, or something was pulling the road apart. She got smaller and smaller in the mirror, but it took much longer than it should have. It was like watching someone walk away into a tunnel that wasn't there before. When I finally looked away from the mirror and looked in front of me, I was at the river, but I'd only been driving for maybe 2 minutes, and it should have taken 5 or 6 minimum. I sat there on the bike for a long time, just staring at the river. The Sarawak River at night is black and smooth, and it looks like a photograph of water, rather than the actual water. I don't know how long I sat there. Time felt funny that night. When I looked back at the road, she was no longer there. I reported it to the police anyway. They checked the area and found nothing. They said maybe I was tired, suggested I get more rest. I've driven that road every week since then. I've never seen her again, but here's what I know. Every time I drive it, I count the minutes, and every time, it takes longer than it should. A few seconds longer, a minute longer some nights. It's like the road gets heavier, like something's adding weight onto it. I saved money to buy a car. I don't want to drive a motorbike on that road anymore. When you're on a bike, you feel everything. The air pressure, the weight of the world. You're exposed. In a car maybe, I won't notice how much longer it takes. Maybe I'll be enclosed enough to believe it's just my perception. But it's been wrong. I've worked at rubber plantations outside Kota Baru for 23 years, since I was 18. The work hasn't changed. We tap the trees, collect the sap, process it, and sell it. It's difficult on your hands, and your hands become like leather, but it's honest work. I walk the plantation every day, sometimes at night too, checking that the cuts are healing right, that the trees are producing. There's a stretch of about 50 hectares where the oldest trees are. They were planted in the 50s, before I was born. Those trees, they have a presence. I don't know how else to describe it. They're not just trees. There's something about trees, that old, that changes them. October is when things get strange. The light is different, more golden. Even when it's dark, the smell of the sap changes. It becomes sweeter, like it's fermenting. And the frangipani trees nearby, they bloom in October. Beautiful white flowers with yellow centres. 2 years ago, well, maybe 3, I was doing an evening walk, checking the taps before the night. The sun had just gone down, so there was still some light left. That liminal time, we are not quite in day, but not quite in night. I heard something near the western grove, a sound like a cloth, like someone dragging fabric through the undergrowth. I called out, but I got no answer. I went to investigate. The sound led me deeper into the grove. The trees were very, very close together here, their leaves blocking out most of the light. the smell becoming overwhelming, rubber sap and frangipani, and the earth, and something under all of that, something sweet and yet decaying. Then I saw her. She was standing among the trees, and she was wrong. Her body was too still. You know, people have a kind of shimmer to them, a vibration, a breath, a heartbeat, and tiny moments of loving. But she had none of that. She was like a photograph of a woman, a very perfect, very still photograph. Pack Mufasta, she said. She knew my name. Yes? You've been walking these trees for a long time now. 23 years, I said. Then perhaps you've noticed that some places hold more than others. Some ground holds more than the other ground. I don't know what you mean, I said. In 1957, a woman died here. She was pregnant. They were taking her to the hospital, but the road was bad and the labour started too early. The baby came at midnight in the back of a truck among these very trees. The baby was born dead. Both of them are buried here, not marked, not recorded, just in the ground. I thought about this. The plantation has a long history. Many people have died in these fields. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you tend to this ground. Every day you tap the trees, and the trees drink from the soil that was fed with her blood. The rubber you collect is growing from a place of her death. You're harvested from her. Pack Mufasa, I want you to understand that. I didn't know, I said. Nobody knows, but you do now, she said, stepping towards me. As she did, I noticed her shadow didn't move. The light was coming from behind and to the side, and her shadow should have moved across the ground, but it didn't. It just stayed exactly where it was, like it was attached to the earth. I come back every October, when the flowers bloom. It's the closest I can get to feeling alive. The flowers are beautiful, and they smell like someone remembers me, even though no one knows my name. For a few weeks, I can pretend that something of me remains. At this point, I was afraid, but I was also pitying her, if that was possible. To be afraid, feel terrible at the same time. What do you want me to do? I asked. Nothing. I want nothing. But perhaps you might remember, when you tap the trees, when you collect the rubber, perhaps you might know that something is beneath your hands. The earth here holds a story. That death is not always terrible. Sometimes it's just incomplete. And as she said that, she wasn't there. Not like she disappeared, like she just receded, like the distance between us increased until she was no longer visible. I finished my rounds that night, but I didn't even collect the rubber. I just left the taps open and went home. I didn't work for 2 weeks. When I came back, everything was fine. The rubber had pulled and crystallized, which was wasteful, but it was bearable. I resumed work. But here's what I need to tell you. Something changed. Every October now, I know it's waiting, and I've started to understand her. Not sympathise, but something deeper. I've started to feel that she's right. That the earth here is different. That I'm part of something larger than just harvesting rubber. I'm maintaining a place of death. I'm tending to it. The trees produce more rubber now. Not significantly more, but noticeable. The yield has increased every year now for 3 years. That's not normal. That's not how agriculture works. My wife asked me why I'm always talking about the plantation now, why I spend more time there than necessary, why I've stopped complaining about the work. And I don't know how to answer her. I don't know how to explain that I'm not sure I'm happy there, but I'm not sure I can leave either. I think about what the woman said, that death is not always terrible. Sometimes it's just incomplete. And I think about all the things in the world that are incomplete, all the futures that didn't happen, all the births that never became lives. Maybe, I think, someone needs to tend to those places. Someone has to walk on that ground and acknowledge that it's different, that it holds on to something. Maybe now that's me. Maybe it's what I've become. But I don't really know. How how to feel about it all.